Don't cry, Mum. Maybe that man will help us, the little girl said softly, pointing to a millionaire inside a luxury car. Rain pounded furiously on Chicago that Monday morning. The sky was covered with grey clouds that wouldn't let through a single ray of light, as if the day had given up before it even started. Inside a black armoured SUV, Marcus Sterling glanced at his Swiss watch for the 5th time in less than 5 minutes. "What's going on, James? Why aren't we moving?" he asked, annoyed, while reviewing his portfolio with the meeting documents. "Traffic lights out, sir. There's a backup," his driver responded in a professional tone. Marcus sighed, impatient. He had a crucial meeting with investors from Dubai. This expansion represented a profit exceeding $100 million. He couldn't afford to be late, not today. While he waited, he turned his head toward the window, and then he saw them. A woman pregnant, with soaked hair plastered to her face, trying to shield a girl no more than 6 years old with her body. Both were drenched, shivering from the cold, standing on the corner as if they didn't know where to go. The girl clutched an old stuffed animal against her chest, and she looked at each passing car with sad hope. Marcus looked away. It wasn't his problem. The world was full of people with difficult stories. If he stopped to help everyone, he wouldn't be the successful man he was. But then something strange happened. The girl saw him. She looked directly into his eyes through the fogged glass, and she smiled. A shy smile, but certain, as if she already knew what was going to happen. She raised her small hand and pointed at him, not with fear, not with pleading, with certainty. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. "James, stop. Now," he suddenly ordered. "Excuse me, sir. I said stop." The driver pulled over to the curb. Marcus rolled down the window. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked without getting out. The woman barely lifted her gaze. She had deep, dark circles and pale skin. She looked exhausted. My baby," she managed to say, placing a hand on her belly, and then she collapsed. The girl screamed. Without thinking, Marcus got out in the rain and crouched beside her. "James, help me get her in," he shouted. In less than a minute, the woman was in the back of the SUV, and Marcus was holding the little girl in his arms. She clung to his neck with the strength of someone who had lost too much. "What's your name?" he asked as they got in. "Emma," she answered in a small voice. "Thank you for coming. I knew you would come." "Oh, yeah. And how did you know?" Emma smiled again. "Because God told me you were good." Marcus didn't know what to say. He turned his face away so she wouldn't see his confused expression. He ordered James to go to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. When they arrived, doctors rushed to receive the woman. Marcus pulled out his black credit card without hesitation. "Whatever she needs, I'll cover it," he said curtly without explanations. 2 hours passed, then 3. During that time, Marcus stayed in the waiting room with Emma, who wouldn't stop talking. She told him her mom's name was Sarah, that they used to live in Gary, Indiana, but had come to the city because her dad had abandoned them, that they didn't have a home, that sometimes they slept in a cheap motel, other times in shelters. "Are you going to stay with us forever?" she suddenly asked, while they played with a couple of crayons a nurse had brought her. "I don't know, Emma," Marcus answered, uncomfortable. "Well, you should," she said, very seriously. "Because you're like the dads in the movies, the ones who are grumpy at first, but then they become good." He let out a nervous laugh. A few hours later, a doctor came out with a smile. "Mrs. Sarah is fine. The baby's been born. It's a boy, healthy and strong. But she was dehydrated and exhausted. She needs rest." Marcus didn't know why, but he walked with the doctor to the maternity ward. And there, for the first time in his life, he held a newborn baby in his arms. He was so small, so fragile, so real. He felt something move inside him, a weight in his chest that didn't come from stress or work, something he couldn't name, but that made him stay silent for a long while. "Do you want me to notify any family members?" the nurse asked. Marcus shook his head. "She doesn't have anyone else," he said without thinking. When Sarah woke up with eyes swollen from exhaustion, the first thing she saw was Marcus, asleep in a chair, with his jacket covering Emma, who had fallen asleep in his lap. Who is he?" she asked in a weak voice. The nurse smiled. "The man who didn't leave." 4 days had passed since the birth. Marcus had returned to his routine, but something was different. Everything remained the same in his office in the Loop. The hallways gleamed, the screens displayed real-time graphics, and meetings started promptly at 8 in the morning. However, he couldn't concentrate. The numbers didn't speak to him like before. Not even signing the deal with the Canadian company excited him. Every time he tried to immerse himself in his tasks, an image returned to his mind. A soaked little girl smiling with absolute faith, and a woman collapsing in the rain, clinging to life for her son. That night, sitting in his penthouse in Gold Coast, with an unfinished glass of wine and silence eating him alive, Marcus made a decision. The next day, his secretary, Jennifer, looked at him as if she'd seen a ghost when she heard him ask, "Can you get me Sarah Miller's contact information? The one from the hospital." "Excuse me?" "The baby's mother. I want to talk to her." "Are you okay, sir?" "Do it, Jennifer. And please don't tell HR. This is between you and me." Sarah didn't understand why Marcus Sterling, the millionaire who had saved her life, now wanted to see her in his office. She thought the worst. Maybe he wanted his money back. Or maybe he just wanted to make sure she wasn't going to get involved in his life. But when she saw him enter the conference room with an honest smile and 2 coffees in hand, she let her guard down. "Sarah," he said, offering her the drink. "I'm glad to see you on your feet." "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I don't know what to say. You saved my life, mine and my children's. You don't owe me anything, but I do have a proposal." Sarah looked at him confused. "I have an administrative position available in the filing and logistics department. Fixed hours, decent salary, full benefits, and access to daycare for your kids." "You're offering me a job?" "Yes. Not out of pity, Sarah. I saw you those days in the hospital. You're strong, you're capable. And I trust that you'll make the most of the opportunity." Sarah lowered her gaze. No one had offered her a formal job in years. Since she got pregnant the second time, doors had closed one by one. "I don't know what to say. Say yes and start Monday." The first day was a mix of nerves and chaos. Sarah arrived 15 minutes early, with the baby in her arms and Emma by the hand. Marcus was already there, surprisingly. He had cancelled a business trip to Detroit just to be present. "I thought you'd be at the airport," Jennifer said, incredulous. "Change of plans. This is more important." Sarah didn't know he'd be waiting for her at the entrance. "Good morning, Sarah. This is Michelle, the HR manager. She'll explain everything." Sarah nodded, grateful. Emma stayed in the daycare, delighted with the toys and colors of the place. The baby was received with tenderness by the caregivers. For the first time, Sarah felt like she could breathe. But adapting wasn't easy. During the first few weeks, Sarah was reserved. She answered in monosyllables, avoided asking questions, and preferred to have lunch alone. Not because she was antisocial, but because she still carried the fear of being rejected, of being seen as a woman with a complicated past. Marcus, for his part, looked for excuses to pass by the area where Sarah worked. Once he said he needed to review some files. Another time, that he wanted to verify the security protocols for the archives. "Do you always review the files yourself?" Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow. "Only when there's something that interests me a lot," he responded with a slight smile. The dynamic began to change without either of them noticing. Marcus, who had always been a distant boss, started to notice the work climate. He talked more with his employees, even greeted the maintenance staff. Jennifer watched him with suspicion, but also with a certain tenderness. Sarah, on the other hand, began to open up. She laughed with her co-workers, decorated her desk with Emma's drawings and a photo of the baby. For the first time in years, she felt part of something. One afternoon, Marcus went down to the building's cafeteria and found Sarah alone, reading a document. "Everything okay?" "Yes, I'm just reviewing the new filing regulations." "Always so dedicated. Always with your eyes on me," she responded, joking for the first time. Marcus let out a genuine laugh. The conversation flowed. They talked about their musical tastes, food, how hard it was to find good deep-dish pizza in the city. "And you?" Sarah asked. "Were you always this successful?" He stayed silent for a moment. "I was raised to win. Nothing else. I never learned to lose, or to stop, until a soaked little girl forced you to." Marcus smiled. "Exactly." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, not as a businessman, not as her boss. She looked at him as a man who was trying to understand who he really was. That night, as Marcus drove home, Emma appeared in his mind again. Her laugh, her faith, the way she looked at him as if he were her hero. And for the first time, Marcus wished that look was true. It was Thursday morning, and the sky was clear like few times in the city. Marcus was watching the traffic from his office window with a coffee cup in his hands, but his mind wasn't on the report they'd just given him. It was on a colorful sheet of paper that said, "Invitation to kindergarten graduation, Emma Miller," with drawings of stars, smiles, and poorly traced crayons. He left it on the desk, next to a thick folder marked with gold letters, "Emirates Project, Final Contract." It was the culmination of 8 months of negotiations, trips, strategies, customized clauses, tax agreements. And the day of the signing coincided with the graduation of a girl who wasn't his daughter, but who he increasingly felt was his. "Mr. Sterling," Jennifer said, entering quickly, "they just published an article in the Financial Times. They're talking about you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Jennifer handed him the tablet and he read the headline, "Businessman Distracted by Employee Risks International Deal." The article had no solid evidence, but it was full of insinuations. They talked about his supposed relationship with Sarah, favoritism, decisions made with the heart and not the mind. "Who's behind this?" Marcus asked, jaw clenched. "Everything points to Richard Chambers, your competition for the Emirates contract. Apparently he got an informant in the company." "How?" Marcus closed his eyes, frustrated. "That bastard." Jennifer lowered her voice. "The Dubai investors have requested an emergency meeting this afternoon. They want to clarify your commitment to the project." Marcus nodded coldly, but inside something hurt. Not because of the contract, because of Sarah, because she didn't deserve to be used as a weapon. When Sarah read the article that same night, her heart sank. Emma was sleeping, hugging her teddy bear, and the baby was breathing peacefully in the crib. But she couldn't stop thinking about how their lives, once again, had been used as a shield or excuse. The next morning she went to the office early. She looked for Marcus. "We need to talk," she said, serious. "Did you read it?" "Yes. And I'm sorry." "You don't have to apologize, Sarah. You didn't do anything wrong." "But you did. You're exposing yourself, risking everything for us. And it's not right." Marcus looked at her steadily. "And what is right then? Keep living on autopilot, thinking only about numbers and stocks? Since I met you, I discovered I was missing something I didn't know existed. But you can't lose your career over this." "Maybe I'm not losing it. Maybe I'm transforming it." Sarah remained silent. There was honesty in his words, but also fear. The meeting with the investors was scheduled for 5 in the afternoon. Jennifer prepared the room, connected the video call precisely, and the documents were ready for signing. Marcus arrived at 4:58. He wore an impeccable suit. But he stopped in front of the door, looked at Jennifer and said, "I'm going to need you to cancel it." "Excuse me?" "Tell them I can't attend, that if they want to sign they can wait until Monday." "But why?" Marcus checked his watch. "Because at 5 o'clock sharp I have a much more important appointment." And he left. The kindergarten hall was full of balloons, small benches, and parents with cameras in hand. Sarah didn't know whether to cry from tenderness or nerves when she saw Emma come out with her improvised gown and an overflowing smile. "Mom, look, here I go." But just before Emma went up to the small stage, someone else entered through the door. Marcus, with a gift bag in one hand and a flower in the other. Emma saw him and shouted, "I knew you'd come." Marcus walked to her, knelt down, and handed her the flower. "I've missed many important things in life, Emma, but I wasn't going to miss this." Sarah, from the back, tried to hold back tears. When the ceremony ended, Emma received her diploma and ran straight to hug them both. Marcus lifted her in his arms, as if she'd been his all along. Later, as they walked back to the car, Sarah stopped. "Did you really miss that meeting for this?" "Yes, I'd do it again. Marcus, that contract represented millions, a global expansion, and you represent something more. You, Emma, the baby, you represent the life I never knew I wanted." Sarah looked at him, incredulous. "Don't you regret it?" He shook his head. "I lost $1 million deal, yes, but I gained something I never thought I needed, a family." That night, Marcus didn't return to his empty penthouse. He stayed at Sarah's place. They had donuts with warm milk for dinner and told stories under dim light. Emma fell asleep on his legs while he read her a story, and the baby rested in the crib next to the sofa. For the first time in his life, Marcus Sterling felt complete. Not because of what he had, but because of who he shared it with. It was Sunday morning. Sunlight gently streamed through the curtains of Sarah's kitchen. Marcus, in a white t-shirt and sweatpants, was scrambling eggs in a pan with almost absurd concentration. Emma, sitting at the counter, watched him amused. "Never thought I'd see Mr. Fancy making breakfast," she joked. "I'm not fancy on Sundays," he replied, feigning seriousness. "On Sundays I'm a chef." Sarah entered with the baby in her arms, freshly bathed, smelling of baby powder and warm milk. "And what's the chef cooking today?" "Scrambled eggs with ham. Gourmet, of course," Marcus responded with a crooked smile. It was curious. The man who once signed contracts worth hundreds of millions without blinking now felt that nothing was more important than this small domestic scene. A beautiful woman with her son in her arms, a girl who wouldn't stop talking, and a kitchen with the aroma of home. After breakfast, they went to the park. Emma wanted to fly a kite, and Marcus, as if he'd always been a dad, taught her to run against the wind. Sarah watched them from a bench, smiling. An elderly woman sitting next to her commented, "You have a beautiful family." Sarah stayed silent for a second. Yes, I do," she finally responded, as if she were just accepting that this was real. In the afternoon, back home, Sarah was folding clean clothes when she found inside a toy box the drawing Emma had made weeks earlier. It was a childish portrait, clumsy but tender. A girl holding her mum's hand, a baby in arms, and a tall man in a suit. Above, in uneven letters, it said, "My family." She took it to the living room and showed it to Marcus. "She made this when you were just starting to visit us." He took it carefully as if it were a valuable document. "And she already saw me as part of her family. Since that day in the rain, she never doubted you." "I did. I doubted myself. Whether I was enough. Whether I could be that man. And now, do you still doubt?" Marcus looked up. He approached slowly and took her hand. "Sarah, I was raised to be a shark, to not feel, not cry, not stop. But since I met you, all that changed. You taught me that it's not about being successful, but about having someone to share it with." She said nothing. She just looked at him. Marcus took a deep breath. "Today I didn't bring flowers, or an expensive ring, or plan a fancy dinner. I just bring this." He pulled a simple wooden box from his pocket. "And this question." He knelt down. Sarah brought her hand to her mouth, surprised. "Will you marry me, Sarah Miller? Will you let me be the father of your children, the man who takes care of them, protects them, loves them every day of their lives?" She let out a laugh choked by tears. "Are you sure?" "More than any contract I've ever signed." Emma appeared in the living room just in time to see them embracing. "Mom, what's happening?" "Marcus asked us to be his family," Sarah responded, crouching to her height. Emma looked at him intently. Then she smiled. "See? I told you he was good." Weeks later, in an intimate ceremony in a garden full of flowers, Sarah walked arm in arm with Emma. The baby babbled from Jennifer's arms, who was now the godmother. Marcus, waiting at the end of the aisle, had eyes full of emotion. The wedding was simple, without extravagance. But every word, every gesture was profound. Marcus didn't read memorized vows, he spoke from the heart. "Today I stop being the man who only ran after success and become the man who runs to catch moments with you." At the end, among applause and tears, Marcus signed 2 documents that were worth more than any others. The official adoptions of Emma and the baby, who now carried his last name. That night, while everyone slept, Marcus went out to the balcony with a cup of coffee. He looked at the starry sky and thought about the day when a little girl looked at him with absolute faith. That faith had saved him. Sarah approached, hugging him from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "That now I understand why Emma chose me that day. She didn't see what I was. She saw who I could become." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. "And you became that. You know what's craziest?" "What?" "That not all the money in the world compares to what I feel now." She smiled. "That's called love, Marcus." And there, in the silence of the night, under a sky without rain, Marcus Sterling, the man who had everything but didn't know who he was, finally knew.